Hey guys, welcome back to Adirondack Adventures. Once again, my name is Josh, and we're nearing the end of paddle season here in the Northeast. It's the end of October. The leaves are falling. I'm winterizing all my gear, putting my canoes away in my garage for the winter, and I'm just sitting with a piece of equipment that normally you wouldn't think I would recommend. I invented bungee yoke for one purpose. At the time, it was to carry my Old Town pack canoe, and it was to go light and be efficient. It now is universal in nature. It carries hundreds of different canoes, but sometimes I like to go a little bit heavier. And when you go heavier, it's always nice if you have a canoe cart that you can depend on. And this canoe cart, I can say, is tried and true. I've used this over a dozen times. It has nearing maybe 100 miles that I've portaged canoes with this device. This is the Seattle Sports ATC canoe cart. The reason why I'm recommending this is because it has been a little bit of a game changer for me and my family. As you guys know, I have 3 young kids. We spend up to a week in St. Regis. We've spent a week out at Lake Lila. We've been all over the place, Little Tupper Lake. And to feed 3 kids, a family of 5, you need to carry a week's worth of food with you, and that gets heavy. We are now canoe camping with 3 28-quart coolers, and they probably weigh over 100 pounds together. So portaging that stuff without the ability to put it in your boat and roll it is basically impossible. Very recently, I was out with some college friends, and you know what happens when you're with your college friends? A little bit extra weight comes along in the form of 12-ounce cans sometimes, and we used this canoe cart to carry both of our boats in 2 separate trips. So we moved my boat very quickly across the half-mile portage, carried it back, and then moved my friend's boat in the same manner. So the same canoe cart was able to move 2 boats. Obviously, it takes a little longer, but it's much better than carrying a 75 or 80-pound cooler full of food and beer. So let's take a closer look at the Seattle Sports ATC canoe cart. The website lists the dimensions of this canoe cart as being 30.5 inches long, which I believe is really what they describe as the width here I have. 16 inches wide, which to me is more of the depth. And it's listed as 17.5 inches high, but really it's more of the clearance to this bar is what I consider its height. And that's more about 14 inches, just so you know. It's also listed as 15 pounds, 8 ounces, which makes it pretty light, but it is pretty strong. It's made of anodized steel. It's powder coated. It has these adjustable, I'll show you a close-up of these adjustable pads that can either come in a little bit more narrow. I have it at the widest configuration because I'm usually carrying my Old Town pack or my Winona Sundowner, which has a very kind of wide base to it. So I like the canoe cart spread out across the width of my boat. But if you were carrying a narrow kayak or some other boat that maybe doesn't need to be set at this width, you have the capacity to remove this pin and move it so that these bars become a little bit closer and more narrow. It has this awesome kickstand, I have to say, which comes in incredibly in handy. So what you do is you'll set the cart up, you'll lay your boat on it empty, and what I do is get it nice and balanced. I'll strap my boat to the canoe cart when it's still empty, and having the kickstands allows you to know that you're balancing it perfectly. And then normally what I'll do is I'll kick the kickstand out. One end of my boat will lean towards the ground, and then I'll start to load the boat so that the heaviest components are nearest to the center of my boat. You don't want a lot of weight at the bow and stern of your boat, because if you do, it has the capacity to flex your boat in the reverse manner, and it could actually damage your canoe. So be very careful about how much weight and where the weight is actually located when you're using a canoe cart. I normally only use this with my Royal X boats also. I have a Kevlar Winona Minnesota 2. I have used this canoe cart effectively with that boat, but what I'll do is I'll put very minimal weight in that boat. Last year, me and my family were camping at St. Regis Pond, and we did a day trip back to Fish Pond, and we used this device to take our Kevlar boat all the way back to Fish Pond. It's 2.2 miles each way, and this thing works great for that portage. We only had a small cooler, our fishing rods, some tackle, anything that we could carry on our backs, we carried on our backs, and it was able to roll the Kevlar boat very effectively and not damage it. But if you were to put too much weight in the Kevlar boat or put it too far at the ends of the boat, it can definitely crack that Kevlar boat and damage your Kevlar boat. So be careful using a canoe cart with Kevlar. It almost always works great with Royal X. In fact, my Old Town Pack is kind of our portage wagon. We bring this boat on our trips a lot of times just because it works great. We can roll a lot of stuff with it. We can make multiple trips. It's basically like a wagon. We have a handle, and it carries a good load of weight. The other nice thing that I do like about this canoe cart, and it's basically the reason why I purchased this canoe cart, is these 15-inch airless tires, which are made of a solid urethane. They're flat free. You won't find yourself miles back in a portage trail and get a flat tire on your canoe cart, because there's no way air will come out of these tires. They're completely solid and airless. The one thing I will say, on my last trip out, I was using my canoe cart and I passed another gentleman who was using one, the exact same one, and he had recently lost a bolt, which made it really difficult. He had to go back to his car and scrummage for a bolt that would work, and he happened to find one, but the bolt had popped off. So maybe carrying an extra bolt or nut would be a tip to say, that you don't find yourself in the middle of the woods and all of a sudden one of your bolts is gone and it renders your canoe cart completely useless. Another nice thing, it's something I never do, but you do have the option of breaking this canoe cart down and removing the tires so that it folds in more of a flat configuration. So if you want to put it in your boat in more of a flat configuration and then put it together at the portage so that it's just easier, it fits in your boat better. Obviously, you need to have a place in your boat for this canoe cart while you're paddling. So when you get to the portage, you have it available. There's many different ways of doing that. Depending upon the boat that I'm in and the amount of gear that I'm carrying, I'll do it 6 or 7 different ways. If I'm in my pack canoe, a lot of times it attaches to a kitchen box and almost looks like antlers in the front of my canoe. It'll be in the bow of my Old Town Pack. When I was with my buddy very recently, we didn't have lots of gear, so this thing sat flat on the ground in one of the bays of our canoe. You'll have to decide that for yourself, where the best storage in your boat is, how that's actually brought. But it is something that needs to be considered if you're going to bring the canoe cart. It is extra cargo. All right, so I wanted this video to be short, and the Seattle Sports ATC canoe cart is definitely a piece of gear that I would recommend to you. You know I love portaging. You know I love bungee yoke. I like going light, but sometimes you need to go heavier. Sometimes you're with your family or your friends, and to have that extra cooler or that extra piece of gear to make your trip a little bit more comfortable makes the portage a little bit more difficult. But with a canoe cart like this, the portage can actually become a breeze, and you actually look forward to portaging your boat. Lastly, guys, thanks so much for watching Adirondack Adventures. Make sure you give me a thumbs up if you like this stuff. Stay tuned. There's a lot more in the pipeline.